Ian and Joe, take a look at this.
Oh, well, that's some innocent people who, after a long struggle, have proved their innocence. Postmasters. There's someone who's not innocent. That's the former chief executive, Paula Vennells. She's guilty. There she is, humping mailbags. That'll be her next profession. Sewing them. So it's a fantastic result. 39 people, one of the biggest miscarriages of justice this country's ever seen, have cleared their reputations. And they were locked up and their lives were ruined and their reputations were destroyed because the post office said, you're stealing at the end of the day from your machines. And they weren't. It was a classic, the computer had got it wrong. It was a faulty IT system. And for nearly 10 years, the post office continued to say, no, the computer says yes, you're guilty. You know, it was that feeble.
And also people were told that they were the only people who had done this.
Yeah.
They weren't told that there was dozens or hundreds of other people.
And you thought somebody in the post office might have said, how is it that a disproportionate amount of dishonest people come and work for the post office? Because the company, the post office chief execs, were the only ones that knew how many there were. And you say 39, but there are a lot more cases still to come.
Yeah. Yes, no. I mean, it was 39 acquittals.
Yeah.
But the case action was about 500.
Yeah.
But you should take a bounty, because Private Eye was the magazine for the last 10 years that's been pushing this story, haven't you? Been investigating it.
We have banged on about it quite a lot. But, you know, Computer Weekly started it off, and there was a good BBC programme called Inside Out South, which you should take about. Yeah. So, and some brilliant, obviously, postmasters themselves saying, I don't think I should have been locked up. And why did no one believe us for this amount of time? This is useless government IT. The same firm, Fujitsu, did the NHS IT system, which lost £12 billion and had to be scrapped because it was entirely useless.
Did they do the Nando's app? Because that's terrible. Nightmare. Every time I go for lemon and herb, it gives me extra spicy. I'm too delicate for it.
It doesn't arrest you afterwards, does it?
It probably gets close.
Yes, the Public Accounts Committee described their handling of the NHS patients' details as the worst contracting fiasco in the history of the public sector. That was before Test and Trace. Fujitsu, obviously, is the company. Horizon was the system.
Yeah.
When did Fujitsu become aware that the Horizon system they had developed was faulty?
10 years ago.
According to Computer Weekly, a senior software developer who worked at Fujitsu alleged that the system should never have been launched and that bosses at Fujitsu knew this. Everybody in the building, by the time I got there in 2001, knew it was a bag of shit. It had gone through the test labs, God knows how many times, and the testers were raising bugs by the thousand. Paula Vennells, there she is. She'd be quite good in Line of Duty, wouldn't she? Sorry.
Looks like a crypt keeper. She is.
She's the former chief executive of the post office. Paula's a very accomplished woman. She's not only an ordained Anglican vicar, she also became a non-executive director at the supermarket chain Morrison's and the furnishings retailer Dunelm, an advisor to the Cabinet Office and chair of Imperial College NHS Trust, as well as overseeing the most widespread miscarriage of justice in British legal history. So well done, Paula. Why is Paula Vennells taking all the blame for the post office fiasco?
It's her fault, I would say.
She was chief executive. Tim Parker was chairman.
Here he is, Tim Parker.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Was it low clouds that day? What the earth is going on there? Well, we can see where the money's gone, can't we?
He looks as though he's borrowed the judge's wig. Put it on his head. He said of this he'd like to apologise for historic failures, by which he was trying to imply things that had happened a long time
before he got there.
Before he got there, but it's just not true. You know, even a couple of years ago, the Post Office was trying to replace the judge who'd found the first lot of people innocent and saying he shouldn't be allowed to try the case anymore.
Why did they do this? I mean, presumably these people aren't evil, but what they did is so sort of incompetent and so dreadful. I mean, why couldn't they, at the beginning of this, say, look, it's been a terrible mistake? Why couldn't they admit to that?
Partly due to, you know, you're picking up an enormous bonus, but also it's just the basic thing, I think, of just believing in technology.
Yeah.
I know that sounds very, very archaic and stupid, but if you've got people saying, no, it really wasn't us stealing, you could listen to them.
That would be a good punishment, actually, for those execs, wouldn't it? A lifetime of the computer disagreeing with them. You know, they go into hospital with a broken leg. Sorry, actually, the computer says it's not broken.
In fact, it's better.
Yeah, it's a
Or
fantastic
computer
thing.
dating, setting them up with people who weren't very suitable. The rest of their life. Every night.
All this began at the turn of the century. Around that time, the Royal Mail had decided it was going to be called something else. Do you remember that was?
Bastards are us.
No. Do you remember they decided they were going to be called consignia?
Consignia, that's a sort of mafia post, isn't it? That's number
It's in the
3.
area.
Consigliere.
Oh, yes. Stupidity.
As the Royal Mail Chief Executive John Roberts explained, consignia describes the full scope of what the Post Office does in a way that the words post and office cannot. It cost £1 million for that idea, and it was ditched only 2 years after, amid general agreement that it was the most unpopular brand in UK marketing history. But let's give credit, as you did earlier, Ian, to Computer Weekly magazine, which led the investigation into the Post Office story. Did you see how they described the predictability of government-backed IT projects ending in failure? It goes something like this. Ambitious project, outsourcing, bloat, disaster, crash, spend, spend, spend.
That's the weekend for me.
So, yes, this is the sub-postmaster scandal and calls for former Post Office chief Paula Vennells to be stripped of her CBE. According to the Mail's brief biography of Paula Vennells, until the Post Office catastrophe, her career, largely in retail, had been exemplary. Well, I'm guessing for many years, Harold Shipman was a top-notch GP. There was a solemn atmosphere in court as the judge read out the verdicts of the 39 sub-postmasters. Cashier number 1, not guilty. Cashier number 2, not guilty.
You know, maybe Rishi didn't have the only terrible launch.
Now, who might be particularly delighted with the timing of the election announcement?
Paula Vennells from the Post Office, because she was up in the inquiry and it blasted her off the front pages and she would have got an absolute shellacking.
That's right, former Post Office head honcho and national sweetheart, Paula Vennells.
She cried 4 times for herself. It was a really disgraceful performance. And I think, yeah, it was appalling. She said things like, I didn't know that they were prosecuting these people when I took over. And you think, that just isn't true. It's all lies. I mean, she is now in the inquiry trying to blame her colleagues, which is the entire point of the inquiry, is that she's already blamed people who didn't do it in an attempt to cover herself, and now she's doing it again.
I also just don't understand how you can come and take over an organisation where suddenly, out of nowhere, after a new computer system comes in, 1 in 12 people that work from you has got their hands in the till and you never previously noticed, even though they worked for you for 30 years before that.
And you work for the Tory party.
I know! Right?
But if what is happening is that the amount of money that you claim they've stolen is returned to the Post Office and then you take it out as a bonus, which they did, that's straightforward theft.
I was going to call it corruption.
That's worse than that.
Is it worse than corruption?
Yeah.
OK.
To show some humility, what did Vennells admit was a personal failure?
Oh, she said she was too trusting.
I was too trusting, she told the
I mean, that's the Prince Andrew defence. I was too noble.
I can't sweat. She said.
I use all my inner water for tears. And her tears reached number 10 Downing Street, didn't they?
Do you know what the inquiry chair, Sir Wyn Williams, asked her?
Did he say, why are you played by a different actor than in the TV show?
He wanted to know more about a briefing document Vennells received, which advised her to only provide certain information if really pushed to do so. Let's have a look.
If I were to suggest to you that you were being advised to be very precise, very circumspect, and very guarded about what you said, that was the effect of that document. Would you agree?
I would, Sir Wyn. I'm not sure I would have noticed that on the morning of the day.
But you'll see the point in a moment. That was the effect that was trying to be created by those who created that document.
It could have been, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Why?
with hindsight, because possibly...
And if you need time to think about it,
No,
you can tell me more.
I don't...
No, that's enough now.
Brutal. Wow.
If you need time, how about 10 years?
Is there any likelihood that you will end up in prison, do you think?
I think as soon as the inquiry is over, the incoming government, be it Labour or Conservative...
Or Lib Dem.
Or Lib Dem.
Or Plaid Cymru.
Or Plaid Cymru. One of the ways we could make an early popular success is prosecute some of the people at the post office. I think it'd be a really good first week.
This is the news that Rishi Sunak's new job in Silicon Valley apparently starts on July 5th. The post office inquiry continues. When news of the post office scandal broke, Paula Vennells also had a job with the NHS, now embroiled in the contaminated blood scandal. So she just needs a role with South West Water and she's got the set. While seemingly turning a blind eye to the wrongful convictions of sub-postmasters, Paula Vennells also served as an Anglican vicar and could often be heard in church telling the famous parable of the screwing of the 5,000.
I love the use of the word seemingly. That was very good. Can we just check the lawyer's awake?
What would you say, Ian?
Ignoring willfully through perverse and evil motivation. Well, the post office story is about miscarriage. 900 people denied justice and persecuted for decades and not given any compensation, and now they're finally saying, oh, those people, yes, we knew they were innocent, we just prosecuted them anyway. And the odd one out is that's an absolute national disgrace, and I don't care much about that. Anyway, that...
Are you going to pick an odd one out, or...?
Yes. The Winslow boy.
Yes.
And that was a miscarriage of justice.
Stealing a postal order.
Exactly.
Which he didn't do.
He didn't, but he was smoking, so he should have been shot.
Yeah.
Any guesses for what the odd one out is?
Yes, the aeroplane, the journalists, because they did it. They nicked stuff off the plane.
You're absolutely right. They have all been wrongly accused of stealing, apart from journalists on board Air Force One who have been asked to return stolen items. So before the post office inquiry resumed this week, what was the new evidence, Ian?
ITV had a tape, people saying we had told Paula Vennells that Horizon could remotely access and fiddle their accounts. There was that, and then there was further evidence in the inquiry this week, and it is sort of getting there. It literally is everything that anyone has ever said for 2 decades is absolutely true.
I was pleased to see that the BBC did give Private Eye a mention, because Private Eye did play a large part in writing about this story for 20-odd years. That's not enough reason to buy it, but, you know.